Like moths plunging towards the flame, we journey to our home again. Like flowers open to catch the sun, our minds are open to see the one. To have you is the sweetest thing to feel. You are our everything. Oh Baba, dearest Baba, you came into this darkest night. You gave us back our inner sight. You found us broken and full of shame. You gave us back our crowns again. To have you is the sweetest thing to feel. You are our everything. Oh Baba, dearest Baba, you sowed in us the seeds of time. You showed us how the seasons rhyme. From high to low, from rich to poor, we find ourselves inside your door. To have you is the sweetest thing to feel. You are our everything. Oh, dearest Baba,
Om Shanti, Sister Jayanti.
Om Shanti. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. And this all is for you from one lovely student. And I said, what is the J? He said, Sister Jayanti. I said, oh, okay. So yeah, happy Valentine's.
Family, the whole family.
Yes, so happy Valentine's to everyone and welcome. And I just want to say one thing that I was reading something by Simon Sinek, and he was saying that organizations that thrive are organizations or companies that thrive are those in which the leader takes care of the people, and where the people feel a sense of belonging, where they feel that the leader has their back. And if you think about it, you know, Baba's Yajna is the most typical example of that. It really epitomizes that theory that Baba really took care and loved each one, and each one felt that Baba's taking care of them, and that's why then they gave more, because they were not insecure. It's the insecurity that holds people back in giving and serving. And so I was really thinking, yeah, this this is really why Baba is our one and only. Baba is our Valentine, and yeah, he's the best. So thank you, Sister Jayanti. Yeah.
So the week before, Baba promised that he would talk about the specialities of the holy swans. And we may have forgotten that, but Baba didn't forget. And so that's the topic that Baba took up, the subject of the most important subject actually of our times today. Because when things are very confusing and challenging and there's nothing clear at all, then that's the time when we need that power to discern and the power to be able to make the right decisions. Decisions that we're happy with, not just a day later or a month later, but for the rest of our lives. And to just think about how often you've made a decision that you're comfortable with, and how often you've made decisions that as soon as you've said something, you've done something, and you've reversed it, and you feel, oh my goodness, why? But this is why the most important of all the powers are the power to discern and the power to decide. And Baba reminded us of this, that the holy swans are the ones who have this ability to distinguish between the stones, the pebbles, and the pearls. And I don't think it's a physical reality that a swan can do that, but definitely it's there in legends in Bharat. And so the holy swan, the one that's able to have both of these very special powers, and so is able to be successful. And Baba pointed out how Saraswati, the mother, has been shown riding a swan, holding the veena, the musical instrument of knowledge, in her hands, but also seated on a swan, because she was the embodiment of these two qualities, her ability to discern and her power to decide. And Baba said, it's not just a symbol of your mother, but all of you children are also the same. You have the same capacity and the same powers also. And Baba said, each one of us had, first of all, the ability to discern the awareness of the self, the time, the period we're going through now, that it's Sangam Yug, the most elevated period. And then you are the ones who recognize the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Father, and God's task, and that this is the time for God's task. And that recognition then gave you the power to be able to decide what to do with your life and to use your life in the best possible way. And of course, there are many others who perhaps you've known through the years and who perhaps even came to Raj Yoga at the same time as you. And they said, very good, very good. And yes, of course, knowledge is good. So hearing that, they said that. But they lacked this power to discern who is the one who's giving this knowledge and who are they, and also the power of purity. And so because of that lack of discernment, they were not actually able to adopt that path in their life. And so 3 things that Baba mentioned: when you can discern, then you're able to decide to pick up the pearls. And then 3rd step, you're able to absorb these pearls. You're able to imbibe these pearls within your own life and inculcate them within your actions. And so it was this very lovely expression of the difference between those who say, yes, good, good, but disappear, and those who actually have recognized Baba and are now following Baba's directions and are ensuring that they develop these two powers and continue to chew the pearls and pick up the pearls. And then Baba was also saying how when you are a holy swan, well, all of you are past and the subject of the recognition of the Father and also the decision to follow a Brahman way of life. But then what is the quality of your interaction with others through the whole day? And what is the quality of the service that you do when you're serving those who are not already Jnani and Yogi, the non-Jnanis? And of course, number-wise, according to effort, but Baba was concerned about this particular quality and the success in what you're doing through the whole day in terms of that interaction and also in terms of service. And then Baba gave the example of the doctor. If the doctor is able to feel the pulse and diagnose the illness, then wonderful. He's able to give you the right medicine and you get well. However, if he isn't able to feel the pulse and diagnose the illness, then many wrong things can begin to happen. And instead of getting better, you're going to feel even worse. And so the whole subject of relationships is the question of the power to discern, to recognize, and then the power to make a decision about what should happen now on the basis of this. And so Baba commented on how if somebody is quite weak, they're not even able to take an injection that the doctor wants to give, which is going to give strength, because the person is too weak, they can't hold it. And so just as on that level, they either go into a coma, a deep sleep, or there's another type of reaction that happens. They have maybe a cardiac arrest even. And so when souls come to us, and generally at that point, I was talking about Brahmins, and with them you have some interaction and engagement. And so what happens? Are you able to perceive and discern what their mood is, what the time is, what the atmosphere is, and what would be appropriate to say to them at that moment? Is it going to be helpful to them? Yes, give them teachings by all means, but first of all, evaluate, discern, and then do whatever is relevant and useful for them. Otherwise, if you just have it in your head, this was wrong, I have to give them this instruction, and you just go on a roller coaster and go steamrollering over their feelings and just tell them whatever it is you want to say, what is in your head according to your mind, well, maybe they're not strong enough to take everything that you're giving. Maybe it just makes them feel hopeless and disheartened. Or maybe they even say, well, this is just too much, I can't handle this anymore. And Baba spoke about the old style of handling, which is the steamroller way, or the new style of handling, which is to be sensitive to the needs of the other and be able to give them whatever it is they need, and they're able to digest. And then Baba spoke about the service of others, people out there, and what is it that they need? If they've come with that thought of just having liberation, then if you talk to them about Jivan Mukti, liberation in life, it's beyond their capacity. And they won't even stay long enough to hear about Mukti. They'll just say, well, that's not for me. But however, if you start with Mukti, because that's what they want, and you explain it in a little bit of detail, then gradually you'll be able to come to the point where you can even talk about Jivan Mukti and offer them that. And so slowly, slowly, you can win them over and help them understand a bigger picture. But if you just try to cram it down their throats, they're not going to be able to take it. And of course, then Baba also was talking about how, again, be able to see what is it that this soul really needs. And if you don't understand that and you offer something else instead, they're not interested. If someone is thirsty, offer them water. You don't offer them 36 varieties of food. They're not in that mood or in that condition to be able to eat any of it. They'll reject it. And so you've got this amazing teachings about the 5,000-year cycle, the sermonizer of the Gita, and all these amazing points. But they're not interested at this moment. And so they'll probably say, thank you, but no. And so have that capacity to be able to discern what the need of the other is, rather than just pour out whatever is in my head. And so to be able to give what is relevant, what is useful to the other, so that then they're able to go away content and happy. And the success of relationships or service is that there should be contentment. Whatever you've told a student, they should be content. Whatever it is you've told a new person who's coming, a visitor, again, they should leave content. That is the criteria for success, not just that I've done my bit and that's enough. So very, very interesting teaching from Baba. And then Baba spoke to the teachers and said to them, but you're interested in karma, but let every karma be such that it's wonderful karma and nothing that's ordinary. Baba doesn't want your life to be filled with ordinary actions, but to be filled with that pure vibration and pure consciousness, in which then even the ordinary has become special actions filled with a higher consciousness. And so it seems as if there are a lot of teachers around, because Baba spoke to the teachers in one or two situations. And then Baba had another very, very interesting passage about how when there's a forceful feeling about anything, and you really want to do that, then at that moment, it could be the influence of the atmosphere, it could be the time that's going on at that moment, whatever is happening. It could be the influence of another individual on you. It could be the influence of Maya coming from inside. It could be my own manmat. It could be any of these different things. And at that moment, maybe what I'm saying, what I'm doing is wrong, but I'm not understanding that it's wrong. And so what to do at that moment, how to be able to deal with it. And Baba said, it's very, very important at that moment to recognize that if there's an instrument who Baba has fixed, then what you have to do when things are a little bit quieter, you're not so much influenced by any of these other things, then in that quiet space, you ask the instrument for guidance, whoever it is you trust, whoever it is you're connected with. And that instrument, because they have been appointed by Baba, that instrument is likely to give you a clear picture of what's going on. And if by chance, then something goes wrong, but you have been following instructions, then Baba's guarantee that just as with Brahma Baba, Baba took responsibility for anything and everything that happened with Brahma Baba, through Brahma Baba. In the same way, if Baba has appointed an instrument, then Baba takes responsibility for whatever is the outcome of that. And Baba was very, very clear. Even if it's something that you consider to be wrong, it won't be a sin on your head. And Baba will take care of whatever it is. But you will have then the safety and protection of having taken guidance from an instrument. And at one point, Baba said, well, maybe you think the instrument is wrong, but is your discernment capacity greater than Baba's if Baba has fixed someone to be that instrument? And there's a very interesting statement, law mujib, according to the law of drama. Worth reflecting on what are the laws of drama. And one of the main laws of drama, of course, is whatever is put out is what comes back. Whatever actions I perform, I get the return, the result of those. And then if I'm following God's Srimad, God's instructions, then whatever I'm doing according to God's instructions, or in this case, the instructions of an instrument, the outcome of that is definitely going to be benevolent and beneficial. But worth exploring what are the further laws of the drama. Another subject, another time, but then further Baba was also talking about how sometimes instruments think that everything's fine, but it's actually a state of chaos. It isn't as it should be, but they don't have that discernment capacity at that moment to say that this is what it is. Then maybe it takes a bit of time to cool down and understand that this was actually not as it should be. Dhamaal and Kamaal, the wonder, the Kamaal, but instead of that, the chaos is what they think is okay. And then Baba also had another very interesting passage in which Baba was talking about how there may be a huge amount of disturbance, but what you have to do is maintain your own inner stability. And if you're keeping that stability, then everything will be fine. Let there be courage. Don't allow any fear to come, but just maintain that inner state of stability and things will work out okay. And why Baba is giving so much attention to everyone. Baba had been, of course, talking about the instruments, and Baba must have seen the faces of some. What about me? But in fact, everyone is an instrument for Baba in some form or another. But Baba was concerned with those who had this thought, what about me? And so Baba then saying that Baba doesn't just love the teachers. Baba doesn't just love the instruments. Baba loves each and every single one of you. And when you have love for someone, you don't want to see them making mistakes. You don't want to see them continuing with weaknesses. And so whatever instructions Baba is giving is out of pure love, because Baba wants you to become Bab Saman, like the Father. And so this is why Baba's taking the time and the trouble to explain. If Baba didn't love you, Baba would say, that's fine, carry on, let's go. But Baba doesn't say that. Baba says, stop, think about this child, reflect on it. And in that reflection, you'll also understand what the weaknesses are, what it is you need to do. But Baba's explaining everything to you so that you're actually able to move forward and become Bab Saman. And I love this point that Baba made that, at that moment in that emotional reaction, you can also become quite stubborn, and you can also try to prove yourself right when you're not right. But after that moment has passed, and whatever it is that's happened, then when you have a bit of quiet space, then in that quiet space, your conscience begins to work. And your conscience tells you that this isn't how it should be. And so whether it's for me and the things that I'm pushing for, and I need to just take a few moments or a few minutes or days even of silence to let my mind calm down and allow my intellect, my buddhi, my vivek, my conscience to start operating again. Otherwise, just pursue that moment. And yes, there can be many things that can go wrong, but stop, reflect. And Baba also commented on how there's a difference between a stain on the soul and just a tiny little mark. And what Baba means by that is that when I actually have a thought of wrong action and I do that wrong action, then that leaves a mark on the soul. And so this is where then extra yoga, extra tapasya, so that the impact of that sin can be removed. But if it's something that's going on in my mind, but I haven't allowed it to come through into words and actions, it's not a mark in the same way, but there's still a little dot. And that little dot means that, yeah, it's a signal that I have to pay greater attention. My record is not as clean as it should be. And if I keep allowing that thought to come again and again, it will definitely pull me into action. And so there's a dot, a stain that's there, a little one, but it's definitely there, even when there's just something that's going on in the mind. So a fascinating Murli of karma philosophy, and Baba emphasizing these two powers in particular, the power to be able to discern and the capacity to decide. And really, these are the things that not only Brahmins need them definitely, but people out there. I know that whenever I've talked to individuals and they say, well, what's the benefit of Raj Yoga? Why should I spend time studying this? And if I talk to them about discernment capacity and decision making, they're interested. They know that this is something that's very much needed by them in their own lives. So powerful, powerful Murli again.
Thank you, gentlemen. So maybe we can just work backwards in the Murli. So gentlemen, would you say the dot is like an unfaithfulness? Is the dot a representation of my intellect moving away from Baba in that sense of being unfaithful?
Yes, to be truly faithful to God, I need to follow God's directions accurately and absolutely. And faithful, unfaithful could be used, but it's a little bit strong. And that term would perhaps apply if it was a very serious mistake that's made. But yes, if I want to take it in its absolute sense, correct.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean like, I don't necessarily mean that they go into another relationship, but even just the thought of thinking that something else can give me more pleasure, you know, or more insight than God, like this, like in that sense.
Yeah, so if it just remains on that level of thought, it's, and you really deal with it, that's it. But the problem with thoughts is that unless I deal with them and I decide, I really don't want this type of thinking anymore. If a thought is allowed to come repeatedly, it takes over. And then it does lead you off in a different direction than the one that Srimat is saying. So the thought, one thought in itself, okay, it's a tiny little dot. But if I allow it to keep coming, it's going to take me away from Baba.
Right, thank you. And gentlemen, together with what you were saying about the father being responsible. I think this, I'm sure many have discussed this. So then Baba has said that he will change that sin. Maybe you could just explain that a bit more. And also, gentlemen, when we use the word nimit, instrument, I mean, there's again number-wise instruments. You know, there's your main teacher in charge, and then maybe there's the assistant of the assistant who tells you to do something. I mean, she's also nimit. So are all of them nimit?
You know, the word nimit can be used for absolutely everyone. I'm nimit, I'm the instrument for the kitchen, or I'm nimit for media service, I'm the instrument for media service. So this word nimit is used in that sense that you can be an instrument for any task, and not just teachers and so on. But I think that in the context that Baba's speaking, it's a very specific situation in which Baba has put somebody in a position of responsibility. And in that sense, and in those days, of course, it was Didi and Dadi who were nimit, or all the Dadis were nimit, the instruments for Baba. And I think it refers more to that very senior position or role, and to be in that position where they're making decisions for not just one individual, but for many. And Baba has appointed them to be able to do that. So, but to think about myself as nimit is very important, because it reminds me that it's not me, but I'm Baba's instrument to carry out whatever task it is that I'm responsible for within the whole scheme of Baba's yagya. And of course, there are so many, many, many different roles. Madhuban used to have 42 departments. Now I think there's probably many, many more. This is before the days of IT and video and so on. I remember early days, they told me 42 departments. Now I'm certainly sure there must be about 100 departments. So each one within those 100 of departments is nimit. And the head of the department is also nimit. But you wouldn't necessarily go with a serious question to somebody who's the head of the media department. Maybe it's related to that, so you would. But maybe it's a very personal decision that's coming your way. Then you would go to somebody who would have had that experience and expertise. So again, it's a question of my own discernment. Who is it that I'm going to? And so my discernment has to be clean and clear.
You're saying my discernment has to be clear in terms of who I take my instructions from. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's right.
Wow. Okay. Well, actually, somebody's asking this question. We'll take her question. So she's saying on the one side, Baba says, yeah, follow the instructions of the instrument, but then also discern for yourself. So that's exactly what you're saying is.
Yeah. Who am I taking instructions from? And so in the days of the daddies, then of course you would go to the daddies to take instructions. Now all the daddies except one have become angels. And so look around and see who you feel you can trust in terms of to what extent they are following Srimad, and talk to them. This was a criteria that Baba had given way, way back. And of course, in Baba's Srikaldarshi vision of the future, when we asked Baba the question, Baba, now you're Avyakt, who gives Srimad, or who do we take directions from? Baba didn't say go to the daddies. Baba said, go to those who are themselves following Srimad, and they'll be able to remind you of what Srimad says. And so, yes, use your discernment capacity to be able to see who is following Srimad and take directions accordingly.
Right, we'll do that. So, gentlemen, the other part of the question where Baba says he will change that sin And this is a deep secret incognito machinery. Anything on that?
I'll give you Daddy Janki's example. Daddy Janki would listen to somebody and then connected with Baba, wait for a moment in silence and give them a response. And if it was a response that was related to practicalities, Daddy would find out more about it in detail and then give them a suggestion. And if, for example, it didn't work out in a particular situation, then they would come back to Daddy and say, but Daddy, you told me to do this. And Daddy would again go into silence and say, okay, wait and see what happens. Just remember, Baba. And it was with good faith that that instruction was given, and it was with benevolence and love, with no self-interest or selfishness or any other motive. And generally, after a little while, that situation would turn around and it would be fine. And so Baba used the word sin, I know, but I don't remember a situation which Daddy would have given an instruction for somebody to do something sinful. But yet, in terms of practical life and homes and illnesses and children and things like this, Daddy would give directions, and sometimes it took time, but it worked out well. It used to work out.
Yeah, but that was Daddy.
But again, the whole thing about if here's an instrument who is themselves following Srimad and they've had experience with the daddies and seniors, you look back and you think, what would Daddy have said in this situation? And it gives you a very clear idea of the direction to go in, or what you know of Brahma Baba through the stories you've heard of Brahma Baba, but also what you know of Brahma Baba through the Murlis. And you ask yourself the question, what would Baba do in this situation? And if it's really something which is totally logic and I don't have any experience of that, then at that moment, just the honesty that I really don't know anything about this at all, but keep yourself stable, connect with Baba and see what doors open up and where Baba wants to guide you and lead you. And so to have that humility also, no, I don't know about the subject that you're talking about, and take responsibility for it yourself. And if it was something that they did know about from a spiritual perspective, they would not hesitate to tell that person.
Yeah,
This is why I say it's a very tricky area that Baba was talking about, but that's the whole subject of discernment. It's part of that subject to understand all of this.
Mm. And just recently, Sister Manda and myself were in Madhuban, and on a few occasions, I would say to her, but this is what Daddy would do. And then she'd say to me, but this is what Daddy would do. Like for people coming and wanting to meet, and sometimes we didn't have time. But then we'd say, no, but Daddy would say, sit with the soul, give them time. And so, yeah, you're right, gentlemen. So, gentlemen, yeah, Baba talks about power to discern. Could you break that up for us? Like, what is the methodology to discern? Maybe even to go back to the first lesson, the intellect discerns.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, our heads, our brains are filled with so much stuff from the logic world and the things that we've been told about, that they've become our belief system. And so nobody told us that you were souls, or even if they used the word, there was no explanation given. In the Abrahamic religions, soul and body isn't even considered separate. There's no definition of soul given. And apparently it's because people were told that the subject of the soul is so important that human minds can't grasp it. It is so subtle and profound. So a lot of the world doesn't accept soul and body as separate. And then within Hinduism, soul and God, Paramatma, Atma are the same. Soul is immune to action. So you hear all of this stuff. So there's no clear definition of what the soul is. And so here am I carrying on in the consciousness that I'm this body. And I carry with myself so many fears, so many barriers, so many blockages, so many insecurities. All of this is going on. And all the negative experiences of greed and anger and jealousy, the whole thing. I come to Baba, and something within the soul responds to what is being talked about. Just the first subject. And the first subject is making a lot of sense. And I experiment with that idea. And so I discern, what is it that's right? My past belief or this new stuff that I'm hearing. So all along the way is the subject of discernment. But if I make sure that the gift that Baba has given me of the divine intellect, if I keep that safe and clean, then what I'm doing is making sure that I keep my buddhi in that state of higher consciousness, and I allow my buddhi to be filled with God's wisdom and the jewels of God's knowledge every single day. And I play with those jewels so that that's my reality. And this is the game of life, the drama. And so I keep that in my awareness. And so keeping that means that my discernment power is very clear and clean, because I'm basing everything on spiritual awareness and spiritual consciousness. The moment that I again allow body consciousness to come and I get influenced by Manmat, Parmat, whatever it is, all the influences from outside, and I'm not practicing soul consciousness, and I'm allowing criticism, judgment, negativity to come in, I'm spoiling that purity of the divine intellect that God has given me. And so then I begin to have trouble with everything. I'm not able to have the capacity to control my mind. I don't have that experience of fulfillment of God's love and joy and the beauty of Sangam Yuga. So everything begins to go pear-shaped. And that process of transformation that I need to go through, that I want to go through, isn't happening. And so I have to go back to first principles and ask myself, well, what did I do with this very precious gift that God gave me? And can I again bring it back to that point of cleanliness and purity through clearing all the other stuff with the beauty of God's teachings, God's knowledge? You know, it's like when you're confused by something and you pick up a Murli and you read it. The clarity and the truth of the Murli starts washing the buddhi, and other things can get out of the way. And the intellect then is filled with that power to be able to discipline the mind. You know, we talk about the conquest of the senses, the conquest of the mind, or even the discipline over the physical senses and the mind itself. Well, that power comes only if the buddhi is kept clean and stays connected with God. Then the discernment is working. Then I know what I have to do. Otherwise, my eyes can lead me astray, my ears, all my senses are there to tempt me and pull me in one direction or another. So keeping the buddhi clean and clear is a task that we have to engage in every day, because we're exposed to so many different things from outside. And what I need to do is to make sure that every morning Baba's remembrance and the buddhi is clean. And then I hear the Murli, and in that clean vessel, whatever God is going to teach me is going to sit. And that's the start of the day, a clean buddhi filled with God's truth. Then that's going to guide me. And I'm going to evaluate, discern things on the basis of what Baba is saying, not what other people are saying, or not what my own mind is saying, but what does God say about this? And then in that case, it's not even just asking, but what did Daddy say? But really, what is Baba saying?
Yeah, that's so beautiful, gentlemen, and makes total sense, because you've got to be in clarity to see the non-clarity. If we're already, down here, how can we, see the difference? So that is so beautiful. Thank you. Maybe we can just move on to, there's quite a few questions, but just one more question about sensitivity. And somebody had said to Dadi that, Dadi, do you think that we are stone, that we don't feel anything? And then Dadi's response was, become a stone, patthar ban jao. This is what Asha Didi was sharing. And so, yeah, we know that sensitivity is, again, another form of ego. But again, somebody was asking this morning in class, like how to overcome sensitivity. I mean, again, we build self-respect, gentlemen, but still we move to this side of the, pendulum.
I think the more power I take from Baba, and the more secure I am in my own state of self-respect, the stronger I am that external things don't shake me or trouble me. And it's a journey, it's a process, it doesn't happen overnight. But just as with so many things, you plant a seed and you nurture it. You don't keep digging it every day to see what happened to the seed, what happened to the seed. You've planted it, you're making sure it has the right temperature, the sunlight, you're giving it water, and it'll gradually germinate and it'll become a little seedling and it'll flourish. And so what I'm doing is taking power from Baba, building up my own state of self-respect, and lo and behold, after a little while, I realized that some things happened and last year it could have affected me, and this year it doesn't. I'm able to tolerate it. And so you have to build up something. It doesn't happen with magic. It's very interesting how Mama used this term the other day, that it's not magic here. Everything is absolutely understandable, very logical. And so if I want to build up a particular muscle, I exercise that muscle. In the same way, if I want to exercise my inner muscles and build up my inner capacity to tolerate whatever it is that's going on, it may be nonsense, but I need to have the capacity to not get disturbed by it. And so let me build up that inner muscle that I can tolerate, and I can just stay calm and stable, whatever else happens.
So gentlemen, I instead of saying, I don't want to be sensitive, what should I say to myself?
I say, Baba, you're the Almighty, and thank you for giving me so much power already, and I'm going to continue and take more and more. There was a lovely expression that Baba used in this Murli when Baba was talking about not getting afraid and having courage. And Baba said, Baba's 1,000 arms are with you. And so Are those arms not also your arms? It's a lovely blessing.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, we'll move on to some of these questions. I think this is a quick answer. Is it Baba's service or is service Baba's responsibility or our responsibility?
My responsibility is to use my thoughts, my words, my actions in a worthwhile way with love for Baba and faith in Baba and be an instrument. And then the further results are Baba in charge. And I'll do what I can, but ultimately service is Baba's responsibility. And the way that God touches some souls, the way God brings some souls in contact, you could never have imagined that so much service could happen in the way that it has. And so definitely Baba is touching souls and preparing them and bringing them closer. But what I'm doing is using my time, my thoughts, my words, my energy, my assets, my resources, my skills, my talents in the best possible way to create my fortune.
Right. And then at times at Lokik work, we are required to be lawful. And this can get transformed into anger. So it seems there's a very thin line between being strict and being angry. So any thoughts on that?
It's the question of my consciousness. And so, yes, there's certain discipline to be observed, and I can be absolutely connected with Baba, see the other individual as a soul, sit them down quietly and say, this is not right. It shouldn't happen in this way. And I can do that calmly with my own inner spiritual authority, and they're more likely to listen. If I get angry, they'll pretend to listen to me while I'm there, but once my back is turned, I have no idea what they're going to do because they haven't understood anything, because my reaction or overreaction actually then cancels out whatever it is I actually said to them. They just remember the anger. They don't remember the instruction anymore. And so if I'm practicing soul consciousness, if I'm practicing even at work, some way to do traffic control, like stopping for water, and that's my traffic control. It's time for me to connect with Baba, not just hydrate body, but hydrate the soul again, make it fresh, make it alive, conscious again. And if I keep doing the things that Baba's given me as tips to continue it through the day, then it won't go over the line and go into that state of negativity. I'll do my work. I'll be able to serve others, bring them together in a team or whatever it is, but not with anger, but with my state of self-respect and treating others with dignity, but explaining whatever I need to explain.
Okay. And if it's back to this dot, the thought and the dot. So if I immediately realize and recognize it, then and refuse, of course, to act on it, does it still become a karmic account?
No, it's a tiny little dot at this point. It's not a karmic account, but it's come to alert me that there's something still there within my sanskars. And if I give it attention and sort it out, extra yoga, extra attention, no problem, the dot will disappear. But it's what I was saying earlier. Usually the thought comes and we say, oh, it doesn't really matter, it was only a thought. And the next time it comes, then it's not just one thought that's come, it's come another time. And I've opened the door to more thoughts to come yet again. And if I keep allowing this, it'll push me into action, which is then karma.
Right. Nice. Thank you. Baba has said that if instruments are doing something not right, just follow them and follow them as Baba's directions, then Baba is responsible. So it's clearly seen that what is decided for you is not right by the instrument. Then how to save yourself from not taking sorrow and keep respect for the instrument?
I think Baba's explanation was a bit different to what is being said now. And what Baba has said, we took that up in quite a bit of detail earlier. So I'll focus now on the other side that this angle is coming from, that the instrument has said something which I feel is not right. What do I do? If I have, and Baba said very categorically, don't just say yes through lip service, but do it with understanding, do it with love, do it with respect, and maintain your own self-respect. And so if really my buddhi is really going knock, 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 and it's not right, then I think it's time to say, okay, well, let's wait, and maybe I can ask somebody else and see what further, take a second opinion. That's possible. That's always open to me. I don't have to take sorrow from it. If there isn't a possibility of taking a second opinion, I can just say, well, let me delay putting this into practice until I understand it. And maybe even ask the instrument to explain why, what, how, and maybe that's going to help me understand. But don't go against your conscience and do something. The Baba was saying, do it with understanding, do it with love, do it with respect. And so if that isn't happening, don't just pay lip service and do it, and then it gets messy, and then you say, you see, I knew this was wrong. So Baba wants us to understand everything and then take steps through that understanding and awareness.
Mm. Yes, that's the first step of discernment, isn't it, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody's asking any examples from Baba's time where he made the Dhamaal into the Kamaal, the chaos into some wonder, if something comes to you. Yeah.
In it, I'm thinking about the whole period of the beggary part, and Baba had decided to use whatever funds they had, Shiv Baba's guidance, not just Baba's decision. And they hired this huge ship for 350 people and their belongings to come. Then they hired a whole train to bring them to Abu. So the last of Baba's finances went in that. And then at that moment, some people were sick, some people were scared, some people were leaving, some people were going on service, different things were happening. And Baba stayed totally calm. Yes, you can have breakfast on the berries on the trees, but there's nothing in the pot. It's okay. Sit quietly and remember Baba, and a money order would arrive, and there would be then shopping for rice and dal, and there would be enough. So gradually, that situation became more and more clear, that it was, yes, a test that had come to shake the tree and see which of the leaves would still remain and which ones would drop off, and some did drop off. But Baba's stability created that situation where today there's abundance, and I would say 99% of all the centers are prosperous. There might be a few that are not, and then it's up to us to try and help them. But generally speaking, I think there's abundance. And not just today, the abundance started many years ago. And so I see how that chaos, through Baba's stability, pulled us out. And certainly by Baba's time, at least there was comfort. There wasn't still abundance, but there was comfort. Basic things were in place. So Baba saw some of that wonder in physical terms. And of course, today Baba's seeing the huge abundance and the explosion of service. And, you know, in India, they have such huge buildings now, so many retreat centers. It's just Kamaal. It's God's wonder how all this has happened. And who's in charge? Women who had very little education, just God's love in their heart and faith in their hearts.
Yes, and gentlemen also, when there was so much criticism and defamation, and so much was being written in the papers and picketing, and Baba just stayed absolutely still through all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe one last question to end with. Somebody saying that Amritvela has become a big thing these days, and Brahmins are doing it from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. What are Sister Jayanti's thoughts on this?
I think that's a fact that since the global silence bhakti, when we started from 3 to 5 a.m., I know of a few individuals who do from 2 to 30 and so on. But I think that wave has really started in the Brahmin family. And I think if you can manage it, it's great. If you have time to take a break in the afternoon, well done, that's good. But if you have to do a full day's job, and even in the center, it's like Baba service, but it's still full time in a sense. So do what's manageable. Don't deprive yourself of sleep and say, well, I was told to have X amounts of yoga. But 4 to 5 a.m. yoga, that's clear, powerful, accurate yoga is more useful than getting up at 2 o'clock and falling asleep. And so do what you can manage comfortably and powerfully instead of being drowsy when you wake up too early and your brain is a bit fuddled. That's not going to be very useful for yoga.
Right, yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, and Sister Jayanti. And we want to say that Sister Jayanti is flying to Madhuban soon. So we will keep you posted about the classes. We're not sure how frequently, and Sister Jayanti has to go there and adjust also to the time zone. So we'll keep you posted. Okay, so there's no class next week because she's actually traveling, but thereafter we will let you know. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Jayanti. And we'll end with meditation.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Arunaven. Thank you, everyone.
खुशहाल हुई है बाकी तेरा दुलार जिंदगी खुशहाल हुई है बाकी तेरा दुलार हमें प्यार मिला ओ बाबा
时候。